Hi folks, Lou here, and I'm going to talk about something that's perhaps more history than game, but certainly applies to games. And that is about many historical empires, especially long ago, where there was a cycle of raiding and then tribute and then conquest. And we can see this in groups of people who are not organized in an empire like the Vikings, but nonetheless experienced the same sort of cycle. And I'm going to take the Vikings as an example, but we could talk about the Assyrians just as well, back in the ancient Near East. The Vikings started out raiding places, especially raiding monasteries, because that's where the money was, kind of like the bank robber who says, "Why'd you rob a bank?" Because that's where the money was. They raided monasteries, and when the monasteries ran out of money, out of loot, then they raided to get other things, and especially slaves who they sold to the Muslims in Spain. And gradually their raiding was so effective that they could sometimes extract tribute from the people who they otherwise would have raided. And the English, various versions of English, certainly indulged with that. Even Alfred the Great paid tribute sometimes. Although it was called Danegeld, it amounted to tribute. But it wasn't a regular tribute, it was a one-time tribute, and that was a difference. Then as the Vikings were more and more successful, they actually conquered areas and settled down. In the case of the Assyrians, it was a little bit different. The Assyrians would raid places, extract tribute, and expect that tribute to come every year as a form of suzerainty, you might say, over the places that they had successfully raided. And frequently those people who had been raided decided not to pay the tribute and fought the Assyrians. And then the Assyrians would go and raid them again and so on. And after several occasions of this, the Assyrians would decide that they weren't putting up with this anymore, and they were going to conquer the place and hold it and extract money through taxes and so on, and not have to depend on this tribute that didn't come through. And in the case of the Assyrians, they finally overreached themselves, and they had a civil war, a long civil war. And at the same time, many of the peoples who they had subjugated, but not settled, they just subjugated them, rose up and ultimately destroyed the Assyrian Empire, never to rise again. Now, this puts me in mind also of the Vikings who raided England, and finally, with Sweyn and then Canute, they conquered England. Conquered in the sense that Edmund Ironside died of wounds, and so there was nobody left to be the king of the English, and the English were tired of fighting, so they elected Canute king. And Canute's son also reigned in England, and so forth. So that's another way that you kind of can conquer, but they didn't settle Wessex the way they had settled the Danelaw. And so finally, the English elected an English king, and that was it for the Vikings in that respect. Thanks for listening.